And we are live, ladies and gentlemen. We are live. Welcome to Benchley Night. First Benchley Night in a good long time. Been busy out there. Ladies and gentlemen. And I've been sick this last week. Much better now. But that's why we didn't have Benchley Night last week. But it's time to do that again. Now, you may be wondering, and I'm curious out there in internet land. I've been showing these on YouTube because Faceplant and StreamYard, the platform we're using, don't seem to get along. But today I risked putting it back up on YouTube, on Faceplant. So if you're watching on Faceplant, comment and say, I'm watching on Faceplant. Or if you're watching on YouTube, say, I'm watching on YouTube. Because I'm not sure, A, whose comments I can see, and B, if it's actually showing up on whichever platform, the whole thing. Technology, ladies and gentlemen, technology. Very much not worth it. Anyway, it's lovely to be here. The Liberal Snowplowing Do-Gooders this week, what we're raising money for is, as everyone knows, there was horrific damage caused by Hurricane Helene in Western North Carolina, where my dear late sister Elizabeth lived in Bandana. Her house is apparently fine. Her neighbor, Meg, who took great care of her in her last days, in my sister's last days, and to whom my sister left the house, Meg is fine. Meg's house is fine. Communication is very, very difficult, but I've received a couple of emails from her. But there's still a lot of trees down. It's a mess. It's a mess out there. And so we are raising money that will go. I'll write a check to Meg in a couple of weeks. To date, we have given money to the American Red Cross and to World Central Kitchen. I think it was like $150 each. And then I gave $500 to my friend Buddy Odom, who lives in East Tennessee and is doing kind of direct boots on the ground stuff. So if we can raise some money to get to Meg, that would be great. And how, you might ask, how can we raise some money? Well, two different ways. You can Venmo Charlie-Hunter-15, whatever you wish, or you can just go to tinyurl.com/BenchleyNight. And that goes to my web store. And I am selling a product called Liberal Snowplowing Do-Gooder Fund. And I think it's $20. And you can leave 20, you can pay $20, or you can buy two of them and give $40, and so on. Anyway, 100% of funds raised do go to the intended beneficiary. Or you can subscribe to my email newsletter at charliehunterart.substack.com. And that goes, if you do a paid subscription, every penny raised there also goes to do-gooder charities. So it's one or the other, either this or this, or just give directly. Who cares? But anyway, let me get rid of these now. Hide. And now we go to the comments, so I can see comments there. Martha can hear me. Carol's watching on YouTube. Martha thinks she's on my personal Facebook. Well, that's good. That was always easier for Martha anyway. So we have a few people to thank. We have a lot of people to thank, actually, because everybody who subscribes to my Substack, who subscribes for a the paid version of the Substack, gets listed as well. So let's get going. I've got the unidentified unglet in the can. Both of them are getting a little bit wheezy, but can do. Okay, let's go through it. Shout out to Carol Burning, to Kate Fry, to Rita Bruns, to Ann Cousins, to Lizzie Grosso, to Nancy Bass. Nancy Bass, I'm sure it's Nancy Bass. Well, it might be bass. You never know. It's all about the bass. To Nancy Flanagan, to Christina Stockman, to Busy Graham down there in Maryland, to Catherine Fisher out there in Missouri, to Nancy Radzik, to Deborah Lovett, to Susan McNeil, who was going to have her hip replaced and now decided she's not going to get her hip replaced. The doctors are messing with Susan McNeil. Let's see, to Marlon Gibson, to Terry Widener, great illustrator, to M.J. Brush, to Jean Fry, to Helen Siksick, to Sonia Jackson. That wasn't her real name 2 weeks ago, but it's her name now. To Sonia Jackson, to James Gilbreth down there in Texas, the hardest working painter in show business, to Mr. Jeb Hart, human being extraordinaire, to Cindy Baker, to John Wilhelm, to IYE 4487. I haven't yet been able to figure out who you are, but thank you. To Ms. Martha Rowley in Saxons River, Vermont. And out there in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where he gets polled every day about who he's voting for, and he changes his mind. He changes his mind constantly, ladies and gentlemen. I don't think he does. My very, 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 very tall cousin, Mr. Nat Hunter, his wonderful wife, Elise, and their little tiny dog, Ginger. Thank you all for supporting the liberal snowplowing do-gooders. We appreciate it greatly. All right. Let's see, just checking the messages here. Everyone seems good. All right. News from Home by Robert Benchley from After 1903 What? Okay. News from Home. Sometime, maybe sooner than I think, I'm going to stop writing little pieces for newspapers and retire to my llama farm in Peru. I dread it in a way because I was once badly chased by a llama. At any rate, that was my story at the time. Aside from this dread of llamas and a slight vagueness concerning the actual location of Peru, I'm going to resent getting out of touch with the homeland. I'm going to want to subscribe to newspapers from the state, if only to keep an eye on the help wanted ads. I don't even know whether there's any money in llamas or not. And here comes the sad part. After years of scanning newspapers for strange items on which to vent my wrath, I have incapacitated myself for regular newspaper reading. I see nothing on the printed page but what might be called the curiosa. The long stories concerning international financial scandals and State Department crises escape me. I am a slave to the oddments in the news. What am I going to do when I get to Peru and just want to glance over a newspaper to see what the home folks are doing? Suppose, for example, I'd been in Peru today and coming in from a llama inventory had been greeted by my Hibisca boy with the news that a bundle of papers had arrived from the States. I had settled myself with a glass of lemonade for a quiet evening with the latest dispatches from New York, Chicago, and the Pacific Coast. I might even have hired a native to strum a guitar for me as I read. Well, what am I able to discover? What are the only items in today's news that catch my eye? A, Zeeb, the infant African zebra, born in the Fleischhacker Zoo in San Francisco, is, quote unquote, a 100 striper. Ordinary zebras have but 90 to 95 discernible stripes from nose to tail tip, but Zebe has 100. B. John H. Happel, on the witness stand in Los Angeles for killing his wife last November, said, "She was too fresh and I just had to teach her a lesson." C. Herman Strutter of Perry, New York, says that a beaver gnawed off his wooden leg while he was asleep and shows teeth marks to doubters. D. Fire Chief John T. Oliver of the Marblehead, Massachusetts Fire Department resigned from service because he cannot get his 150 call firemen to attend fighters. Because he cannot get his 150 call firemen to attend fires. They take Sundays and holidays off without notifying him, and he cannot fine them the customary $1 in such cases, as they are civil service employees and are immune to such fines. E. Japanese fishermen train cormorants to work for them. The birds dive for fish and catch them at the rate of 100 per hour. They bring them to the boat and they deliver them, frequently under protest, to their trainers. F. People in Binghamton, New York looked out of their windows and found the ground covered with snowballs, rolling around without visible means of propulsion and increasing in size as they rolled. The Weather Bureau explained that this was a phenomenon rare in the East, resulting from a peculiar combination of soft, wet snow, a high wind, and temperatures around 36 degrees. What kind of news is that for a homesick man to read in a batch of papers fresh off the boat? And yet, those are the only items that caught my eye in daily dispatches. I have been trafficking so long in this type of stuff that I can see nothing else. I sometimes wonder if it's all been worthwhile. I also sometimes wonder if I'll ever go to Peru. The second reading tonight, ladies and gentlemen, the second reading tonight. Let's see. I'm just checking to make sure everything is still okay out there in the comments. Yep. The mysterious Miss Hanniver. A few months ago, I was badly frightened by a newspaper photograph of an animal, half fish, half owl, half gleber, which had been caught off the coast of Florida. I demanded an investigation at the time. For the benefit of those who missed my scream of terror, I will describe the animal as having the face of an owl except for a human mouth, the chest of a high-breasted baby, legs like a field mouse, a tail, and two extensions of tissue on the side like those of a skate. It was simply god-awful looking. It now seems that an independent investigation has been going on for some time, conducted by Dr. Gudger of the American Museum of Natural History, and the results appear in last month's Scientific Monthly. I yield to Dr. Gudger as he has more equipment at his command than I have. All that I have is that photograph, which I peek at now and again, shuddering noisily. Dr. Gudger, it seems, does not take the animal nearly as seriously as I do. It is, he says, a fabrication, and that it is known as a Jenny Hanniver. If he thinks that he is making it any better to call it a Jenny Hanniver, he is crazy. That just makes it worse. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to break from the reading for a moment because naturally I was curious to determine if Robert Benchley was just funning us or if this was actually something. So I went to Wikipedia and I typed in Jenny Hanniver. My God, There we are, ladies and gentlemen. There we are. Jenny Hanniver. I'm going to read to you about it. A Jenny Hanniver is the carcass of a ray or a skate that has been modified by hand, then dried, resulting in a mummified specimen intended to resemble a fanciful creature, such as a demon or dragon. This practice dates back to the 16th century, when these specimens were often sold as curiosities to sailors and collectors. Name. One suggestion for the origin of the term is the French phrase jeune de Ver, youth of Antwerp. British sailors, it is said, cockneyed this description into the personal name Jenny Hanniver. Now, if that isn't a Robert Benchley type explanation, a French word meaning youth of Antwerp, which has nothing to do with a modified skate. Anyway, history. Jenny Hannivers have been created to look like various mythical creatures, including devils, angels, and dragons. Some writers have suggested the sea monk may have been a Jenny Hanniver. The earliest known picture of a Jenny Hanniver appeared in Conrad Geisner's Historia Animalorum, Volume 4 in 1588. Geisner warned that these were merely disfigured rays and should not be believed to be miniature dragons or monsters, which was a popular misconception at the time. The most common misconception is that Jenny Hannivers were basilisks. As basilisks were creatures that killed with merely a glance, no one could accurately claim to know what one looked like. For this reason, it was easy to pass off Jenny Hannivers as these creatures, which were still widely feared in the 16th century. I urge you, look up Jenny Hanniver, ladies and gentlemen. Look up Jenny Hanniver. Hi, Charbonneau. You want to come up? Nah, he just came in, but he's happy to be down on the ground. Anyway, so back to the reading. If he thinks that he's making it any better to call it a Jenny Hanniver, he is crazy. In fact, it just makes it worse. It seems there's a certain type of ray or skate, the underside of whose head bears a grotesque resemblance to a monstrous human face. When dried, its carcass can be manipulated and doctored up by practical jokers to resemble a what is it of almost any proportion. The result is a Jenny Hanniver. This little hoax, according to Dr. Gudger, has been appearing on and off in every quarter of the globe since the 16th century. Apparently, the first thing that has occurred to a certain type of prankish fisherman on finding himself with one of these human-looking rays or skates has been to fix it up funny and fool his friends. Well, I don't happen to think it's funny, that's all. The one whose photograph I have been tormenting myself with is the most recent example of a Jenny Hanniver. A Swedish fisherman in Florida made it from a guitar fish and had its picture taken. Well, I hope he is satisfied. He has made the spring of 1934 a hell on earth for me. And yet, for some reason, I resent Dr. Gudger's taking the horror out of it. Hi, Sharbs. I had begun to take an almost personal pride in the beast. And given a few more months of brooding over it, I might even have got around to intimating that I myself had caught it. Dr. Gudger, with his blind insistence on facts, has spoiled all of this for me. I think I'll just take one more peek at the papers, though, at the picture, though, anyway, just for old time's sake. Dr. Gudger might possibly be wrong on this one. All right, ladies and gentlemen, all right, thank you for joining us tonight. I'm going to go one more time to the banners. So if you want to contribute to our flood relief efforts in Western North Carolina, You can Venmo Charlie-Hunter-15. Come on, Charbonneau, out of the way. Or, or donate at tinyurl.com/BenchleyNight, or become a paid subscriber over at charliehunterart.substack.com. All right, we'll see you probably not next week. I think I'm in Cape Ann, Massachusetts for the Cape Ann Plein Air next Sunday, but then I should be back after that. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you take good care. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.